2101. It is uncontroversially true that people in different societies have different customs and different ideas about right and wrong. There is no world consensus on which actions are right and wrong, even though there is a considerable overlap between views on this. If we consider how much moral views have changed both from place to place and from age to age, it can be tempting to think that there are no absolute moral facts, but rather that morality is always relative to the society in which you have been brought up. On such a view, since slavery was morally acceptable to most ancient Greeks but is not to most Europeans today, slavery was right for the ancient Greeks but would be wrong for today's Europeans. This view, known as moral relativism, makes morality simply a description of the values held by a particular society at a particular time. This is a meta-ethical view about the nature of moral judgments. Moral judgments can only be judged true or false relative to a particular society. There are no absolute moral judgments. They are all relative. 2102. If the United States has one of the easiest geographies to develop, Mexico has one of the most difficult. The entirety of Mexico is in essence the southern extension of the Rocky Mountains, which is a kind way of saying that America's worst lands are strikingly similar to Mexico's best lands. As one would expect from a territory that is mountain-dominated, there are no navigable rivers and no large cohesive pieces of fertile land like the American Southeast or the Columbia Valley, much less the Midwest. Each mountain valley is a sort of fastness where a small handful of oligarchs control local economic and political life. Mexico shouldn't be thought of as a unified state, but instead as a collage of dozens of little Mexicos where local power brokers constantly align with and against each other, and a national government seeking often in vain to stitch together something more cohesive. In its regional disconnectedness, Mexico is a textbook case that countries with the greatest need for capital-intensive infrastructure are typically the countries with the lowest ability to generate the capital necessary to build that infrastructure. 2103. When Samuel Taylor Coleridge wrote the words, "Water, water everywhere, but not a drop to drink," in the rhyme of the Ancient Mariner in 1798, the dangers of drinking seawater had been known for thousands of years. Seawater does indeed make men mad. Historical evidence indicates the ancient Egyptians knew seawater was not potable, but the earliest realization that it was unsafe to drink has been lost to antiquity. In pre-Columbian times, the greatest fear of venturing too far from land on the ocean was not falling off the surface of the earth but lack of fresh drinking water. From a human perspective, the oceans, which cover 70% of Earth's surface, are still the most extensive and unique desert wildernesses on the planet. Saltwater constitutes 97% of Earth's water, and of the 3% that is fresh, 2/3 is frozen in glaciers and polar ice. Thus, a mere 1% of all the water on the planet, in lakes and rivers, groundwater, and the atmosphere, is fresh and can be used by terrestrial plants and animals.